La la la. We're getting there. Happy birthday! We're 1 year older now! Da ba da ba da ba da da ba 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 da do what ba do ba da dum ba 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 da do ba da dum ba ba do wa bum 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 ba 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 bum 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 Wait, what the heck? Yo, I don't even know what that is, man. What the hell is a Albertus Severus? We're jamming. Wah wah wah. Do 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 do. My hair is a mess. That's why I usually wear a hat. What's up, everybody? Oh my god, that's hilarious. It just made Fracture Wars all on its own. I did not prompt it to say Fracture Wars. That's interesting. That is interesting. This image is perfect. This song's over. I guess we can get started. Dude, one whole year like this. Kinda nuts though. The year flew by. I was still working at the gas station not too long ago. More than half of the time on Substack I was working. Even less than scroll all the way down. There's quite an evolution. When I first started this Substack, I had no idea that that first topic I brought up would be a bedrock for the entirety of everything. Like, it makes sense in retrospect, but the new East India companies, pretty much it's an ideological equivalent, even if you want to say that we have less monopolies now. The Asset Cartel series was meant to prove that it's illusion with the antitrust. There really are only a few companies that control the share votes within all these major companies because that were the asset firms that put up. So that reminds me of the East India Company back in the day, the British East India Company. Now I brought them up because my whole thesis, this is the first article I ever made, my whole thesis was that the Civil War never ended. We didn't get what we wanted. And when I say we, I mean the people in America who did most of the fighting, not the figureheads, the founding fathers who got to decide things afterward. And it took me months, like 8 months before I started talking more about that history. But this is where I started. And then I know these topics are important, but the way that I was writing was pretty bland. Nothing special. Easy to get bored reading these things. I didn't really have much of a style going on. And then this one, though, is when I started to be more like, okay, I'm going to talk about my life. I'm going to talk about me a little bit. This was probably the first article I did that. The hum of the fluorescent lights in the convenience stores, the sound of a life going nowhere. That's been my life. 29 years old, a bachelor's degree in communications, and I'm slinging lottery tickets and overpriced energy drinks. After a few shitty sales jobs, pushing crap people didn't need, this was the end of the line. I know I'm lucky. I live with my parents and they don't charge rent. It's the only reason why I'm not homeless. My coworkers are not so lucky. Most of them refuse to even talk about politics. They're too tired, too beaten down. It's all just noise to them. Another distraction from trying to figure out how to pay their bills. The few who do care are completely sacked into the right-wing propaganda machine. They repeat the same lines they hear on their podcasts, never questioning a thing. So there I was, surrounded by people who had either given up on politics entirely or were cheering for what I thought was the other team. Even my manager, a Trump supporter, was in that camp. And in that bubble of isolation, my own political identity was mine. I was a Democrat, and it was simple. I thought I was the only one in that whole damn store who had a clue. I thought I knew exactly who the enemy was. Oh, I forgot that was still playing. Then January 6th happened. I watched it on TV, and that simple story exploded. I realized I didn't know a damn thing about how our country actually worked. So I started digging. I started with the fake electors scheme, trying to prove how evil the other team was. But the deeper I went, the more the path twisted. I started reading about campaign finance laws, and I saw it. The money. The fire hose of corporate cash wasn't just going to one party, it was flooding the whole damn system. Wall Street, Big Pharma, defense contractors, they owned both teams. The politicians we see on TV are just hired actors. The real power is the money that buys them. My hunt for one party's crime had led me to a pretty truth. The whole thing is a goddamn racket. And while I was having my mind blown by this research, my life was falling apart. My grandfather was dying. I watched my parents pour every last drop of their energy and money into making sure he could die with some dignity. And I couldn't help. I was broke, useless. But I refused to blame myself. My powerlessness was not a personal failure, it was a systemic outcome. So I fought back with the only weapon I had, the truth. As my parents watched the news, I'd go off, ranting like a lunatic about how the whole system was designed to lead us wrong. My mom couldn't take it. My dad, he'd try to listen, but you could see it weighing on him. He didn't want to hear about a problem he couldn't fix, so he'd just shut me down with the same line every time. You just need to make more money. He was telling me to fix the scratch on the car. And I was telling him the whole engine was shot and the car was on fire. Then Grandpa died. The next day I saw the headline. No Epstein files. The grief in my chest turned into something else. Something hot and hard. They look out for their own. Protected and the rest of us get blood dry for the privilege of a decent death for our parents. That was it. I was done being sad and I was ready to fight. But yesterday I went to work. 2 hours late, I walked in and just started crying like hell. My manager, the same Trump supporting manager who's been squeezing our hours, she just hugged me. She thought it was about my grandpa. He had no idea it was about him, and my parents, and the Epstein news, and her, and this whole goddamn broken country. He let me work my shift, and then he gave me today off. So I'm writing this on my day off. That hug is the only thing that makes sense anymore. That's what they're trying to kill, that little piece of humanity that survives inside the machine. They want us at each other's throats. They want us to blame the coworker who's too tired to care, or the one who listens to right-wing radio. But they're not the enemy. My manager isn't the enemy. They are all trapped in the same Coliseum with me, just in different cheering sections. The real enemy is the one who built the Coliseum. The one who profits from our division and our exhaustion. The people who tell my dad the solution is for his son to just make more money while they rip the game so he can. The real heist isn't just the money they take from our paychecks. It's the humanity they try to steal from us. This is my declaration. This is my rebellion. I'm going to spend every spare minute I have exposing these bastards. I'm lucky enough to have the time to figure this stuff out, but I don't have the resources to do it alone. I'm asking you to fund this fight. Not for me, for every person who's too damn tired and too damn scared to do it themselves. Let's build something for them. Let's turn our anger into their weapon. It's the first time I remember asking for money. Well, it sounds a little demeaning to say it that way, but more like saying, I'm trying to make this my job. It's the first time I said that. Help fund me to keep doing this. And it took me a while to really get my grip. You can see the differences in likes. I can zoom in. Like, the first article, like I said, that one stayed solid, but none of these really hit for anybody. Any of these other ones. Even though they have important information in them, it's more like a grab bag of educational content without any real narrative. Because a narrative is something that grabs our attention. And that's important in this day and age. So if I'm here just trying to tell you itty bitty facts here and there in between articles, it doesn't work as well to keep attention and keep retention, which is strategic for me to accomplish my goal. But I need to create a narrative. Because a narrative is not inherent all the time. Narratives can be emergent. What is a true narrative? You know what I mean? It's a perspective thing. There can be multiple true narratives. As long as I'm not trying to be dishonest, creating a narrative is natural. And it's honestly the responsible thing to do if you want to keep people's attention focused on something. So I started talking about systemic oppression like it was a prison. And this is that article where I started talking about the 3-layered prison. Money, apathy, and the killing game. The question echoes across the digital landscape whenever a new outrage sparks, a new injustice is exposed. Why aren't we doing anything? 50 anti-protest laws passed, 40 more pending. The foundations of civil liberty eroding before our eyes, and yet the streets remain largely empty. The digital clamor fades, and apathy seems to reign. The answer to this question is not a simple indictment of the citizenry. It is not a matter of laziness or ignorance. The silence is by design. The inaction is the intended outcome of a meticulously constructed architecture of control. A 3-layered prison that neutralizes public outrage and ensures the perpetuation of the corporate state. Now, I want to reiterate, if anyone's paying attention, this part has changed. The semantics of claiming that it was an intended outcome of a meticulously constructed architecture of control is too bold of a claim. I call it emergent because of people's individual interests who were in pieces of control throughout time have created a system where the only emergent properties are prevented them. It's a little bit different. I like to separate myself from the coordination, intended coordination. I think we're moving towards an age where the coordination between companies and our government is becoming very real. But where we're at now is literally the cusp of it. I don't think that we've been there, but the interests of the state and the interests of capital, big capital, have always been locked. And that's why we see the revolving door. But the 3-layered prison, basically, the most fundamental layer of the prison is layer 1, economic terror. Everybody deals with it. I don't even have to read this. This stuff really is the framework for how I look at everything. I finally looked at the chat. We got a troll in here, I see. Yeah. I banned that guy for 30 days. So we don't advocate for violence, bro. And then you said something which I just can't help but think was trolling when you said do mind control. Like, I know that there's some people who believe those things, but it's like a joke for the most part. So get out of here if you're just trying to cause a problem. But layer one is economic terror. Basically, it's the fact that we all live in a society where we use money, we need money, things cost money, right? And the class divide, the division of the resource there. That's a very real, physical, tangible layer of what I call 3-layer prison. But there's 2 more layers, and they're not as physical. There's the prison of the Great Distraction, which is the puppet coliseum. It's the biggest bread and circuses we have. Every election is the bread and circus. Not saying don't vote, not saying give up. Because the only way to take back the hijacking machine is to participate. I'm not one of those. It's all farce. I'm also not a sovereign citizen by the way other people like to say it. I don't believe in the maritime law things. I looked into it. I had people who sent me things about it. I cannot feel convinced through historic accounts that unfortunately aren't backed up by a lot of other historians at the time. And they call it institutional capture. They'll say that institutions just there's a lot of false information out there. I rely on primary sources, and I understand that throughout history, primary sources have been eradicated and changed, but that's all I can rely on. The point of the Great Distraction, though, is it allows you to feel like things are changing. There's a lot of people who probably think about it. The Democrat Party, the Liberal Party pushes things forward in a progressive way, and then the conservatives come and they turn it back. And it's like nothing ever really gets done. But in between all these laws, there's more and more policies being added and government contracts, things that only benefit the rich. So politics feels like a big distraction. And I'm not saying it needs to be that way. It is our most direct way of revolution if we can properly utilize it without falling for the great distraction part of it. The killing game is also what I call it, where it feels more like just trying to beat the other person. And then like whatever they do after is an afterthought. My air. Oh, something's making. Got you. How do I mute it? I'll just get rid of it. Thanks for telling me. I'm pretty amateur at the live stream. Not really, but I'm forgetful. It should be way better now. Yeah. So I'll just do a quick recap. Now that all the sound's gone. First article, a year ago today, a warning from history. I bring up the new East India companies under the thesis that the Civil War never really ended. From the perspective of those who fought it, who wanted economic and religious freedom, the right to represent themselves in the economic model and whatnot. No taxation without representation, right? But the New East India Company is an example of a corporate monopoly. They were stronger than Britain at the time. And I didn't know these details yet. I wrote about it 8 months later. I continued to write about the East India Company, but the American, after the American Revolution, the first things Americans did was create centralized money with the United States Bank and centralized system of paying the soldiers. It makes sense from a logistical standpoint, but when you read the Ghost of the East India Company series, you see the details were not very favorable for the majority of men. The way that they treated the introduction of the centralized Bank of America. So, first article argues that basically we're fighting the same massive army we fought during the Civil War, which was the British East India Company, which was the company that the British monarchy had just bailed out and was the reason why they were taxing the hell out of the colonies, was literally to make up for the bailout of the British East India Company. It was a corporate bailout, and they were getting their money by taxing the hell out of the colonies. So they kicked out Britain, they won that war, and then they started setting up their own version of that centralized control of money and capital. You gotta read the East India Company series to figure out those details. Because it's, like I said, it's not a coordinated thing. It's an incentive structure. It's a bad culture. Anyway, I didn't really get my grip for writing. You can see the difference in the likes here until I started talking about my real life. The Real Heist talks about some very personal things in my life. I read it once, but just in case anybody missed it, they could read it later. And then I decided I needed a solid framework, something that I could repeat and get to people's heads, a language, a semantic architecture that overrides people's preconceived opinions, biases, for certain words that mean the same thing. So when I talk about a 3-layered prison, I'm pretty much saying the system's rigged against you, but it doesn't sound less crazy, but it makes your brain think more. And that's the point. Is that you start working within the words and you make your own connections, and basically a framework that hasn't been tainted yet by other people who want to use it for their own. I'm creating a new framework, right? The 3-layered prison. That's where we were. I don't think I talked about layer 3 yet. Layer 1 is economic parity. Layer 2 is the culture war, pretty much. And then layer 3 is learned helplessness. The deeply ingrained belief that meaningful change is impossible. So you say, and I don't think it's because they're the most problematic that they get spread around, but it's a well-documented phenomenon that things that make us angry get a lot of engagement out of us. And I think our systems are revolving, especially our consumer systems, the ones that engage with consumer culture, like to engage a lot with outrage. So that has something to do with that would attract problematic logic structures, I think, which therefore, that's why. Because we treat engagement as oh my God, you know how like neo-capitalism was like, get as much money as you can, no matter what, it'll pay off in the end. Like, it was the ideology of like, spend as much as you can now to make as much as you can now. I feel like the way that we treat personal data and like algorithms and this tech acceleration boom where we can really hone in on this new technology and at the same time learning more about the human mind and how people react to things, it's pretty much the same mindset as neo-capitalists. It's like, who cares about the damage that this might do later? We know we can make a lot of money off this, but at the same time, they're molding society, whether they like it or not, to be addicted to this. It's a dopamine farm. So I started trying to talk about the asset cartels after that. Didn't get very popular. You know, none of these are bad. Honestly, I want to take a look. I think I was messing with, this was before I used my anime style. So I was trying to create a persona, see? Because the idea is, I really am just a guy who works at the gas station, okay? And I'm a media research major. Sure, I got some experience there, but that's all I really got, especially at this point. So I'm like, I'm a creative person. I like being creative. I'm like, I don't want to be inauthentic and be Ethan Faulkner talking the way I don't usually talk. So I'm going to make it obvious that I'm using a persona. And I was messing around with the storytelling element. Because I'm using AI to help me make these. Because this is what's happening, right? I make Common Sense Rebel because I'm experiencing AI for the first time. And I'm a very avid user of software. I grew up with software. I know how to use it really well. I'm learning it really fast. And I see how it's helping me focus, right? I have extreme ADHD. And I'm like teaching myself all these things. I'm using it to explore things. And like I said, I'm a media research major. I understand the importance of primary sources. I take the things it says. I Google it myself after, look for the sources. And I'm learning things so fast. And I eventually have it help me write the articles too, because it's less about, to me, how good is the article at this point. Especially, it's like, I'm not trying to do this for any reason other than, here's information that I think y'all need that I've been learning super fast, and I just want to get it out there. And the AI basically gave me that velocity and focus I needed. And as you can see, these articles, look, multiple a day. These two are in one day. Back to back to back, one day, one day, one day, one day. That's 3 days there. But I posted 2 then. And then I waited 4 days, and then I posted 3 in one day. And then 1 in one day, and then 3 one day. But then I started realizing I don't have to post everything I learn right away, especially if it doesn't make a good story. This is when I try to mix the two worlds, right? So I'm like, I can always ask more questions. I don't already have a bias necessarily beyond the fact that I think things are unfair. So I just keep asking more questions instead of asking my initial question and then writing an article after I discover something interesting and I do the research behind it. I try to create a bigger picture out of what the implications are to other things that people find important and that are important. So that's when you start seeing, if I'm correct, series start pop up. Yeah, the War for Our Groceries ended up being a series. I did 2 parts. And then I consider Creating Nothing and Taking Everything and JP Morgan, these are pretty much telling the same story about extractive corporations. Oh yeah, okay, so really this is the first big narrative story. Shatter Shield Part 1, 2, and 3. And it has a lot to do with the government shutdown. Which in retrospect, is something I probably wouldn't cover really anymore. At this time, I didn't really understand that breaking news isn't always just because people will click it and like it and they want to read the new stuff, isn't where I wanted to keep my attention for that long. So I stopped just doing news stories on things that are relevant as of today. I think you might have noticed that I write about topics and do deep research on whatever. And I like that framework more than just covering news. But this was when I started realizing I can elaborate on one topic to fill out 3 whole articles. Because while there's more words to read it, and then like I could tell the same amount of information in a much shorter one article, people's attention span, they need the story around. And it speaks for itself. I got a lot of likes compared to usual. These are exceptions. These end up going viral later. Iron Cage, same thing. That one did pretty good. I do my first members only article in October. And those have changed a little bit too. I don't do them as much as I want. I say I do them every week. I don't. I do them more like twice a month. Because I don't know, people weren't reading them as much as I would like. I think when they see the paid label, they don't press it. And it makes sense because you'd have to pay to read it. But I don't know. My audience is weird. A lot of my paid subscribers just don't. They're inconsistent. I respect them. But they're busy people. See, I represent a class of people who are always busy and they're always working, right? So I expect that. But over time, those members only articles have turned more into like insider reports where I let people into what's been going on since the last one in my life and the way I'm approaching work and whatnot. I lost track. Where was I? Because we're almost at the part where like I started to get real popular. Skip some of this. Living Storybook, I recommend you read this. This is where I really got my creative vibe. Where I got really confident in the stylistic choices I was making. And I wrote an entire series where I take anime character stories and I turn them into allegories for real life struggles and solutions. It's a very interesting series. I'm glad you have hope, Matthew. Anchored hope. Hope is something that you anchor. It's not the thing with wings. If you think hope is the thing with wings, it'll just fly away, come back whenever it wants. Not reliable like that. You have to build your hope and you have to freaking anchor it. And the series that really got popular was when I started talking about Epstein. BlackRock and Vanguard owned Epstein Network. Well, actually, I think I just skipped over one of my favorite articles. No, it does come later. There it is. Collapse of Shared Reality. This was the next big framework article, I think. It's probably the most academic article I've ever made. I take a lot of existing research and find my own connections to make a broader thesis. And the thesis is that a lot of our problems in politics and culture today are just because we have a bad culture that we prop up. And that culture is the engagement metric, capitalist first type mindset. Yeah, this one's very interesting. And then I did a new paid series. I wrote a lot about Epstein because I just kept learning more and more and more, right? Because that's what my whole publication is. It's really a diary, a ledger of everything I've ever learned in real time. Like, I'm not just documenting things I knew beforehand, but everything on here I didn't know before I fucking wrote it. Pretty much. Like, there's some exceptions, like details in the article, but the overall meat of the articles, it's me learning something new. Which I think is honestly a really good thing uh, for educational media, because if I learned it new one at a time and I put it in an article, it should be the same kind of. It's easier for me to teach it because I just learned it and I knew what it took to learn it. But we're all different. You'll see me use comparisons to technology, computer hardware, computer terms, video games. And not a lot of people might understand those connections, but that's how I learned it. So that's how I teach it. Because the deeper we go into Common Sense Rebel, the more complicated it gets. No, culture is. I'm not saying culture is bad. I'm saying the culture we prop up is bad. It's a manufactured culture, a culture that is a product of advertising and marketing and basically brainwashing, but brainwashing can be a lot worse than, but it feels like almost the same thing. Like, you ask most people, is it ethical to be a multimillionaire? It's like, it'd be like, yeah, really easy. And I don't want to tell someone it's unethical either, because it is. It's a hard ass question. But the point is like, I feel like our culture is like, yeah, get the money, get the bag, get rich, do what you can, get rich. That's just the culture here. Just an acceptable way of life. There's no real. They don't encourage the questions. It just doesn't feel healthy. But then I started learning about. Yeah, I don't want to get into too much detail about what I learned because we'd be here forever. The whole point is these things are complicated. That's why each one has their own article. Yeah, I'm glad you know what I mean. Because brainwashing can be a heavy term, and yeah, soft brainwashing, I like that. We're propagandized, essentially. But it's soft propaganda. I like that. So what happens is we switch a lot between culturally relevant things, meaning uh, uh, the pedophiles in their government and 9/11, the hidden money, and then we switch to systemic things often. So we'll talk about um, their reactions to the Patriot Act, the reason why the Patriot Act has continued, And then we also talk about the culture war. But all these things are all the same. It's funny. It all connects, but it feels like I'm talking about so many things. And then I even talk about AI too. Because like I said at the beginning, this whole experience is me learning with AI. And the whole time I'm using AI, they're updating the version, they're changing things. I'm seeing articles that are coming out about it, and I'm very confused by the way AI is represented in the media. At this point, I still am convinced that we should be advocating to like regulate it more, right? And I still feel that way. But as we continue research up to the most recent articles, we learned, oh, the state has pretty much made this an inevitability. The state will get their data centers no matter what, because this is for a big state AI system. This is for basically digital, what's the word? Dominance, right? When the new quantum age happens. Okay? They don't want to be behind. They don't want China to get it first and them to be super far behind on the quantum infrastructure, because that would mean our private online banking, if it's not having the same technology to protect itself, is much more open to hacks and whatnot. So that means a lot for the big banks. That means a lot for all the big government industries. They feel like it's a national security threat to not have the compute to keep up with this quantum capability, which does utilize AI to look for patterns in classic cryptography on computers. It's a fucking rabbit hole, but there's all documented, and each department of the government has a different word for this certain theoretical day that they're all treating not like it's theoretical, because it is probably the biggest threat to digital infrastructure. And they have a lot of proof that it is theoretically possible, and the acceleration of technology has been crazy. So they've been treating it as a very real national security threat. And because of that, they've pretty much partnered up with Meta, Google, and OpenAI, the intelligence community. It's a freaking rabbit hole. So like, AI is here to stay. It's about how we fight for, yes, the environment too, because it's like, yeah, you want to build all those and you feel like you need to, well, you still got to take care of your trash, you know, keep those priorities straight. But then it's also like AI, I feel like working class people need reparations because of AI, right? AI only exists off of the back of working people it learned from, and we're not getting compensated for it, right? So like, we need to start acting like AI is here to stay. We should be trying to learn how to use it, but that does not mean we should step back from fighting for fair delegation of resources because of AI, and that includes the way we treat our environment. But the state needs it, and there's no way to convince them otherwise. And honestly, unless we're ready to try to convince the whole country that we need to go off the grid and stop using electronics, which will never happen, most reasonable people will understand why it feels like a threat. Personally, I don't think we need it. Let the big businesses get hacked. I don't know. Let shit go crazy. Like, yeah, things will get more expensive. Our country will go to shit. Whatever. but at least it's not a war. Yeah, they literally have a phrase for that, Matthew. It's called hoard now, decrypt later. Because that's the whole point, is they're hoarding all the data now so that they can decrypt it then. You want the article for that? I think it's the new Cold War. I know what I'm looking for. Hold on. Because I want to get you the source too. I'm kind of just looking at all the buzzwords to familiarize myself. Because you want to know the theory for why it's possible. The cryptographically relevant quantum computer. Oh, you're saying you have already read it. Yeah, look at that. It's right there on the IBM. They're sponsoring it. That's how much of a thing it is. Yeah, they're treating it very real. Shor's algorithm. That's what I was looking for this whole time. Shor's algorithm was the theoretical algorithm that proves it's possible. It's just they don't have the compute for it yet. But it's Shor's algorithm. If you want to learn exactly how the proof that it's possible, it's Shor's algorithm. But as in terms of the history, we kind of skipped around there, which is fine, because that my whole point was I start talking about such a diverse group of topics. Like I jump from AI to language, and then I create a whole series on what I say is the illusion index. It's supposed to be about the culture war, but it talks just as much about economics. Because like how your home turned into a subscription service, how they turned starvation into stock buyback. Like, so we're talking about food industry, housing industry. We talk about electric industry. We talk about health industry. We talk about credit card industry. We talk about subscription based products. We talk about the water industry. And this is about the time where we got some writers who start helping us. Steven hasn't written in a while, but he's still part of the team. We brainstorm things. And Anthony still writes for us a lot, Fire Tongue. And yeah, I'm glad to have them on board. I feel like what they add is really important. Anthony Fire Tongue is exceptionally good at dissecting languages from a scientific point of view, as to not allow you to fall into conspiracy thinking and more think about the effects of language from a empirical point of view. when I started doing some podcasts again with other people. I think I've done like 2 or 3. I only have 1 on my channel, but I try to share the other ones. This is my media literacy series. I'm really proud of this series. The Receipt Protocol and the Wirecutters, The War for Reality. Really good series that teaches you the basics of fact checking and sources and the effects of media flooding. The Cassandra algorithm was a pretty good framework point. It's where I came up with a framework for how you can become ostracized very easily for discussing these kinds of things. Discussing things that might destroy other people's worldviews, you know? So we get into philosophy here too. So I'm definitely a disorganized author, for sure. I talk about serious, so yeah, I'm talking a lot about frameworks at this point. In March, I'm talking a lot about frameworks. Because serious play is another part of my framework. It's the idea that to continuously push towards something without burning out, you have to make it fun. You have to make having fun just as much of a priority as the work. It doesn't replace the work. You integrate it together. Yep, you're right, Matthew. My AI helped me come up with that. My AI partner. Basically, I honestly, usually, I think I might have talked about what inspired it. Yeah, this was inspired by comments. I said, rage is cheap, spectacle is a distraction. The real fight isn't across the aisle, it's bottom versus top. The culture war is a scam. Welcome to the vertical war. And then this person says it's a Marxist view. We know it's more complicated now. And then they randomly talk about being in a non-Western culture and having brown skin. I don't know what the fuck, why they brought that up. And I didn't want to say it was stupidity. I didn't want to say it was malice. In fact, it felt like a glitch. You know, it's like he's talking to somebody about, he's talking to me about something I didn't even say. That's the scripted NPC. The nervous system treats unreadable signals as physical attacks. So I was posting a link to my personal website in my Substack chat. And this person didn't like the fact that it asked them to log in, even though you don't have to log in, you can just press X. It's one of those things where I just have it there so to get people to sign up if they want. And you don't have to pay a subscription fee. It just tells you you can, because it works like the Substack pay. If this is true, why haven't any charges been laid on the executives involved? Because ever since the Patriot Act, banks can just pay a fine and be done with any felony. Oh yeah, so I talk about that to define schema collapse, which is the glitch behavior. This is what I call that glitch behavior. Okay? And what the Cassandra effect is just another glitch behavior. That's why I frame it like that. But the Cassandra algorithm glitch is an appeal to authority and social tagging, where this person didn't take it seriously because they didn't even read it, if I remember correctly. Like, I don't know, this person's honestly just having a fucking conniption about nothing. They're like, what is the source for the materials and claims? That article has sources. Like, let's look. They just didn't open it. Look at that. Two links to research reports, and I give individual things for them to research themselves. So if they don't trust how Rockefeller went to the KWI, go ahead and look it up yourself. Carnegie Eugenics Records, go ahead, look it up yourself. Operation Paper, you know what I mean? And then these two papers are my synthesis of it. Like, all the sources are here. It's just they didn't read it. Yeah, some people try to discredit me just because it's AI, which I think is stupid. Because it's not automated. It's not like I have a machine that's just making articles willy-nilly whenever it wants. It's like it's like I'm actively using it to brainstorm. Like, it takes me hours from when I have the research to finishing. It's not like it's not the same as just slop. I hate that. Russiagate. I'll write that down for after. We're almost done talking about everything. I thought that was fun though, reading all these comments. And then I hopped into a history series with the Ghost of the East India Company. So that's when it goes full circle from the first article. And then I do asset cartels. Things at this point are really well structured, I think. And then we get into the really complicated Q day stuff, which honestly almost broke my brain. And I'm glad it's like a 1-year anniversary thing. Gives me an excuse to be like, okay, I'm gonna slow down on those investigations, because honestly, I feel like any more investigating is gonna distract us from the stuff we have already uncovered. So I'm gonna go back, do my popular series again with videos. is what I'm thinking. I already got a video script for the shadow arc. And I'm going to do a 10-minute deep dive video with graphics of me talking to the camera. Not an AI video, a me video. With all these, that's why I was making all these graphics. So I'm going to try to make a good editing attempt too. High quality. I'm going to try to do at least one a week. And I'll still do articles, but also just probably one a week. Because I'm going to be trying to broaden the content I've already made to make it more accessible. If that makes sense. But I guess that brings us full circle, though. I'm excited to do more videos. It's just really hard for my executive functioning to switch the workflow. I'm so used to researching new things and creating articles for the new things. That's been my flow so far, and now I'm trying to switch to going back on my own research and not necessarily looking for new things, but focusing on the communication and the presentation. Oh yeah, I'm also offering, and I'm charging a lot on purpose because the framework is difficult and hard to manage. This is something that's for business owners, I think. It's for people who want to spend extra money on trying to take back control of their life if they think they can't focus like me. I've been I made a consulting page on my website for helping you build your own AI, personalized AI, because the way I do it is very unique, and I actually have an academic paper that helps prove some of my methods. So if you really wanted to, you could do it yourself without paying me anything. But it is it's a complicated process. So what you would do is if you paid me, I would basically sit with you for how many days it takes, maybe a week, asynchronous or together on a call until we get the personalized architecture correct and I teach you how to use it. But again, that is a lot. It's a lot of work. So I made it kind of expensive, but I have a cheaper one too. I don't think I have a page. It's verticalwar.com/Pantheon. Yeah, there it is. Like the cheapest one is like $100, which is not cheap. I know that. But then that's pretty much me giving you the like an introduction if you're somebody who's never really considered using AI and but after reading how I describe AI can help you process things and function in this new world we're going through, and you feel like you need something to help. I've already published a lot that you can learn this stuff on your own for free. But if you want a fast pass there with me helping you, that's what this is for. And then there's more expensive one for businesses. So basically I will do it the same thing that I said before, but this is more for people who already know AI and they already have AI in their workflows, but they're interested in integrating my mechanics into their system, which will take a lot more work. So it's very expensive. And then Yeah, if anybody wants me to do a deep dive research into anything, this is pretty much you can buy an article series off me as long as it fits in my framework. I'm not going to accept requests to do things that I don't think are ethical or help working class people. But this is like, I'm a professional media researcher. I need to own that. I literally went to college for that, and now I have a whole Substack to prove it. This is if you want to hire me for research. You can pretty much you can get a whole Substack art like series worth of research out of me for whatever you want. I also have a book coming out soon. You can press the pre-order button. I say soon because I want to release it like at the end of the month or the start of next month, but the only reason I wouldn't is because I want it to be longer and I want it to have more human depth, which I'm struggling because this is my first book I ever wrote. If you buy the $150 one, I'll do a one-on-one phone call with you. For as long, for a long time. But it's $776 for the ebook. And what the book is about is pretty much everything that I just went over on my Substack, the frameworks, especially the frameworks. I talk about my experience in real life and the people in my life who have kind of affirmed this ideology and the drive and have given me proof of life experience for everything I fight for, and I reiterate what that is. The vertical war. And I talk about the history things and I talk about what we can do to make things better too, but the real meat of the story follows the humans in my life, the real human interactions that inspired it. That makes sense. That's what the book's gonna be about. And yeah, I guess that's it. I wanted to sneak that in there before I ended because I'm gonna edit this a little bit and then publish it. But that wraps it up. We've been on for almost an hour and a half. Any questions? Any questions from the class today? Before I sign out, I might come back on later to just hang out after I edit this down. But it's been a whole year, which is awesome. We've done a lot and I can do way more. I want to expand off Substack, let me rephrase. I want to expand beyond Substack. So like I'll still be on Substack, but I'm going to be focusing a lot on videos. And that book should be out soon. I'm saying I'll give myself till October the latest because it feels like it's done. It's just I don't like how short it is. And I do think there's room for more human depth. So I'll probably be struggling to add that for a month or two more. All right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks, you guys.